Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is Tom Clark, the 2020 SAR president. Welcome to the SAR Roundtable for Friday. And today we have guests. Mark Richards not here yet, so I won't introduce him yet. We have Joel White, the executive officer of the Spokane Home Builders. Joel's been with Spokane Home Builders since 2005, this go round anyway. He was with Home Builders in Clark County, I understand, for a while, and then came back to Spokane. And is now, as I say, the executive officer with Home Builders. Rob Higgins is Spokane Association of Realtors Executive Vice President, has only been in that position for 32 years, and was given a little bit of time off for good behavior to be a city council person years back. He was actually the very first city council president in the year 2000. So Rob brings with him a whole bunch of experience and insight into maybe where we are, where we're going, and where the heck have we been. When Mark Richards gets here, he's the president and CEO for the Downtown Spokane Partnership. Hey, there he is. Hi, Mark. Mark's the former realtor, was also with the Home Builders in government affairs, as I recall, and a prior Spokane County Council person. And so welcome, Mark.
Thanks, Tom.
Darren is our moderator, and once again, this is recorded, so if someone has an issue with that, they probably don't want to participate. So we're going to record this for our members to view at a later time. Those that are out on the golf course, that is, they can come back and watch it later. And so Darren Watkins, our Government Affairs Director, is our moderator extraordinaire, and please take it away, Darren.
Gentlemen, thank you. Today, as you know, our topic today is how do we rebuild? How do we get back started? And we've got a number of different areas to talk about, but given that we're realtors, we'll start with real estate. And Rob Higgins is here. Rob, you've gotten some new information just this morning on helping brokers get their offices opened up. What can you tell us about information we should get from the state and those sorts of things?
Well, yeah, there was a conference. It was actually a National Association of Realtors called Association Executive Institute session, and one of the panelists was Steve Franks, our AE at the state level, and he put together all kinds of good information that the state is going to be sending out Monday to help our brokerages what they need to do to reopen. Things that the state has put together after reviewing all the material from our governor's office and the Department of Health and CDC and the National Association of Realtors information. So they put it together. It's really dynamite. In fact, the panelists on the program asked if they could copy what Steve had put together, and he said, "I'm sure it'll be okay, but I want to get it out to our brokerages and our members first, and that's going to be, we can look forward to it on Monday."
Some great guidance out there, especially when we talk about all the steps that brokers need to be taking inside their offices to reopen. As we now enter phase 2 and we can reopen offices for business and what that looks like. How is the housing market itself? I know we've kind of been down as far as overall listings, but sounds like there's some movement already this last week.
Yeah, I mean, things are really, I think, much better than I thought they would be when, on March 18th or something. And when we actually went to our shutdown on March 26th, thankfully our state association stepped in and did some outstanding work and got residential real estate as an essential business, and we were able to start operating on a limited basis that Saturday. I think it was about the 28th. So, and looking at the numbers since then, I would say in general, we're going to be down about 20% when it comes time to look at sales and new listings. They're running pretty close, which leads me to believe that, and Tom could answer this better than I can, when a listing hits the market, if it's priced right, it's gone. There seems to be a lot of demand out there from buyers, and the market time on new listings seems to be, they're being scarfed up right away. The interesting number I saw the other day was, again, on a national conference meeting, they call it foot traffic, we call it lockbox openings. And on a national basis, National is saying they were down 11% from March to April. I looked at our numbers, and we in Spokane are down 5% from March to April. Now, if you compare April to April last year, we're down quite a bit, but that was a whole different market. I think, so our activity is not down as much as what's going on around the country, and that says a lot for Spokane and I think our future. I really anticipate that once we're just going to keep building on where we were in March. And yes, we took a downturn in April and May and probably in June somewhat, but I think we're going to start our way back up. In fact, already have.
And speaking of building, let's bring in Joel White with the Spokane Home Builders Association. There's we've had some economists talking in the last few weeks with us about where they see the market going. A lot of them are indicating they not only see a big demand that's sort of been pent up during this time where people are sitting on their listings and doing a lot more work to spruce them up, but people still are looking at Spokane, but maybe even a bigger push in the year ahead with an inflow from places that really want to get away from larger metropolitan areas. What about the opportunity to build more houses? Where do we look? Where does it look like? And how long do you think it's going to take for us to sort of get things ramped back up?
Well, we were able to, just a couple weeks ago, we moved to phase 2 for construction, which is faster than the general public into phase 2. And so now we can actually pull new building permits, which is the big hang up before was, even though in phase 1, our members were able to go finish existing projects, which was great, but we couldn't put any new projects in the ground. And so that was a challenge. So now we're in a phase where we can actually start building again, but we see a significant drop in permits. Last month, compared year to year, it's about 50% less than what we had the previous year. And if you look year to date, we're probably 35% lower than we were last year at this time. So there's just not enough, you just couldn't submit permits. So we're seeing a big spike later in the year. And I do agree with you that this inflow of buyers out of area, they're the ones purchasing homes in Spokane for new construction, because at the price point that you build new construction at, the average citizen in Spokane, the wages we have, can't afford new construction unless they're a move-up buyer where they have equity in their homes. So that's one thing we're looking at, is that these buyers come in with equity from their sale from Seattle, where they've had to run up 50% increase in their prices over the last 10 years or more. They have got a lot of equity in their homes, and they can bring that over here and buy a much larger house in Spokane and still be able to internet other ways to communicate. They can be in touch with their employer on the west side of the state, and maybe travel over once a week or twice a week and still do their job and live in Spokane, have better quality of life than they had in Spokane. So, I mean, that's what we sell, and we have a great quality of life here, good schools for your children and other things. So, I mean, it's a great place to live.
In a number of industries, we're seeing pipeline issues where it's the goods that they need to do that job. And I'm curious about what you're seeing in the building sector. Is the ramp up expected to be slow, fast, in the middle? Where do you see it?
Yeah, it's a slow ramp up, I'll be honest. And it's both not just the materials, it's also the labor. Again, like all industries, some laborers, they're actually doing better staying at home than they are if they're working, given the generous stimulus money and unemployment benefits. So a lot of the workers, and you can't force them with the current laws to go back to work if they don't feel comfortable. So some of the workers are not working yet. So it's getting the people back on job. A lot of them did want to go back. Some of the workers wanted to be on a job because they live paycheck to paycheck, and they wanted to work day one. They didn't feel there's a huge risk. And so some of the contractors, to be honest, they were working during the shutdown. I mean, they just kept going, and it wasn't really, for various reasons. Some of it, there was interpretation issues. You can make a good argument that the governor's order was not well written as far as the interpretation. There wasn't clear interpretation of some of the standards. So some of the builders did continue working. And so a lot of projects are still on track. I think going forward, yes, you will see a quick ramp up, but we still, even the last 4 years under pre-COVID conditions, we basically capped at 1,500 building permits a year for 4 years straight. So that's about the capacity even in a good market, just because of labor shortages. Now materials, you're seeing some spikes in certain types of materials because of shortages, and that goes back to the international trade. you can't build a home with American-made materials. Even the guys that try to do that, it's almost impossible to find all the materials to build that are actually made in America. So you're buying some materials from foreign markets.
And of course, you can't buy a home unless you've got a good job that's moving and you're
Yep.
back at work. So Mark Richard, Downtown Spokane Partnership, who is the president and CEO. Mark, how do you see things? It looks, I just was in downtown Spokane last night, kind of taking a look. Seems like things are slow. They're not really jumping right back at it to get in it. What's your anticipation?
Hi, Darren. Hey, can everybody hear me okay?
We can, thank you.
Great. Yeah, thanks. Well, first of all, I want to say hi to my good friend Joel. I haven't seen you in a long time, and Rob, and all of you actually. But I don't know, Tom, if you knew this, but Joel and I used to work together at the Home Builders.
And we actually work for the realtors. So
that's right. That's right.
And the realtors. So yeah,
that's right. I guess I see. It's all relative, Darren. I think if you were downtown 2 weeks ago or a month ago, to be honest, I think what you're seeing downtown right now is actually pretty active. It's just been fascinating few months, but like I said, if you were downtown a month ago, you could find a parking spot on any block on any street. And I just left there from a meeting, and I had to drive around twice to find a parking spot. So I think that's a good indicator for us. What we're seeing is there was a little bit of traffic in the mall as people are getting reused to engaging in terms of consumer activity and going out to dine and those kinds of things. Probably a lot of those vehicles are folks that are coming back to work. So we're seeing that's a real positive. A lot of our commercial office space, I think you're starting to see people coming back to work. Kaufman Engineering, for a good example, they employ about 150 people and they're in our building. They're starting this week to return to work at about 30 to 40%, and they're going to start trickling more and more as our employees get more comfortable. So I guess that's, to me, it's funny you say that, because I really felt like in the last, 48, 72 hours, frankly, with us heading into phase 2 and now some of these hospitality venues starting to reopen, we're starting to see some livelihood in downtown again.
And you were behind a plan with the city of Spokane's efforts to help expand sort of the business footprint by moving out onto sidewalk. Tell me what that's going to look like for retail and for restaurant space moving ahead. Looks like that's going to change some of the face of downtown a little bit.
I think that's a really great point. So for those that aren't tracking, this was an executive order issued by the mayor and fully supported by council that is essentially going to streamline the permitting process and eliminate the permit fee for folks that want to create outdoor sidewalk seating even in the alleyways, so moving your venue out into the alleys or even into your parking lots. I think in the short run, obviously the goal there is to create more usable space, because those businesses, particularly restaurant, are having to operate at 50% capacity, and the mayor knows full well that for many businesses that's just not going to work mathematically. And so we're really grateful for that. But I think what's really going to be interesting, and I'm really hopeful for, Darren, is that we see this as a long-term, trend. I mean, I think the outdoor experience is such an amazing environment in any thriving urban area. It's certainly something that we relish in downtown. A lot of what we do as an organization is creating opportunities, events, activation, what we call activation outside. I'm optimistic again that we'll see some of this trend continue on past this recovery period, where we're going to see, I think, more of that experience, dining and being able to go to a bar or whatnot out on a sidewalk experience that I think is going to add a really nice positive energy to downtown.
That's certainly supported by the survey that was done to talk about, and you put that survey out. I was very interested in the results. Well, there's a lot of trepidation still about folks just wanting to get back outside. It seemed like just recently some polling that said people are ready to get back out. People wanted to get out of the house, but had some trepidations about shopping, but were eager to get out and eat, and things of that nature. Is that something that we should consider when we try to open up some of these events and venues?
Well, it certainly is. That's one of the reasons why we did this survey, was to try to get a sense of what folks are ready for in terms of the events that we host and the ones that we support, all the way from Bloomsday to our Fall Fest event and everything in between, our car shows. We're trying to build a base of knowledge also for a marketing campaign that we're going to be engaging here and launching in the next probably 30 days. And that will be to help rebuild some of that consumer confidence out there. And part of that starts absolutely with the business themselves. So we're starting with our businesses, encouraging them to, no matter what we believe about this current, crisis, I think the reality is many people are concerned about it. And so perception is reality. And so we need to make sure those businesses are responding appropriately and providing the proper equipment and safety measures, and they're opening carefully. And that's going to send a nice, positive, comforting message to our consumer. And so all of that is intertwined, and I think is going to have a profound impact on whether that consumer confidence remains high and folks have a good experience, and we start to see that growth in individuals that are getting back out and starting to do their shopping at other places than Amazon.
And you'll see some differences. Obviously, tables will be spread out a little bit farther. Masks and gloves on servers. Servers won't be coming by your table as often. Those sorts of things. But this is part of phase 2. What's your sense of moving ahead to phase 3 and maybe re-engaging some of these activities you were talking about?
Well, you're probably all as disturbed as I am to learn that the governor doesn't even have a plan for phase 3 developed yet is beyond comprehension for us. I think if you look at the from a categorical standpoint, I think we have to look to phase 4 before we get to a point where we can have events more than 50 people. We are a long ways off from phase 4 in the governor's mind. That's troubling to us because events are the livelihood. They're the bread and butter for the downtown. So I think logically we're going to have to start by thinking about events that are more spread out, probably smaller in nature, and working our way up. But as was discussed, I think in yesterday's Spokesman Review, the hit to the tourism and conventions business alone is over $20 million according to their estimate. And that impacts everybody from the shoe shine person all the way to the hotel owner. And so, our belief is that we can be moving faster than the governor is allowing us to do that. And so we're going to continue to do as you all are doing, including the home builders, and apply that political pressure to see that we can't get moving a little bit quicker, safe, but quicker.
Mm-hmm. Especially here in this county where the rules for the state, often it felt like they're sort of a one size fits all, but I think there's a better recognition now that not everybody's facing the same level of risk. Rob Higgins, I'd like to come back to you really quick on talking about home building procedures. Do you anticipate a lot of changes for realtors? I know there's a lot of little things. For example, one of the interesting things this week, I must have gotten a dozen questions, people asking, wait a minute, we can't put business cards on the table when we stop by and show a house. But other than some of these small rules, do you feel like that the business of real estate can actually get back on track?
Well, it'll be different. It'll be more virtual. Everything I'm reading, and I try to read as much as I can each day on what's going on, look at trends around the country. You're going to have to adapt to the virtual business model, use that more and more. Perhaps not as much in Spokane as in major metropolitan areas, more congested areas, but it's going to be a different environment, certainly for the remainder of this year, I think. It'll be interesting to see what happens next year. The pleasant surprise is that the volume and the activity seems to has been increasing. So, when we'll get back to where we were, maybe not until next year, but certainly there's a lot of activity out there, and it's going to be, we're going to be a lot more conscious about germs and those kind of things. There's no doubt about it. We were told this morning that we're supposed to be wearing masks all the time. I'm not wearing one in the office right now, but whenever I go out in public, go to the store or anything, I put on a mask. And I think our realtor members are going to be expected to be wearing masks when they're showing property. I think that's one of the guidelines that's coming out, or that's already really out.
It is interesting in that we used to look at people wearing masks and wonder, well, gosh, are they okay? Is everything all right? And we looked at them kind of oddly. And now it's just the other way around. We look the same way at those who aren't wearing a mask. Just
Right.
just kind of an interesting change. Joel, as we talk about the economy, though, we all know that in every recession that we've ever had, leading out of a recession, it's home building that really does help drive that. What is it going to take, do you see, that we could help you with to try and get those efforts really jump-started?
Well, I think you guys are right. And just real quick before I jump in that, of course, our members are actually forced to wear masks on job sites now, which going to 90-degree weather, that's going to be interesting. You're going to probably have heat stroke before you have issues with COVID on a job site, but that's a whole nother discussion. But I think that the challenge is going to be getting the buyer confidence up. And that's where the economy, that safety of moving and being able to sell your home. I think that's where those are the two elements that really need to happen. Investors, builders will find a way to move forward if there's a solid market, that secure market where they feel that they can. They're making an investment. They're investors. They choose to take risk when they put a speculative home out there, and the more certainty they have, the better. So when the economy's well, and also there's the buyer confidence goes up, and so that's really just trying to make sure that explaining to them the value of long-term value of construction. Our market will return. It's going to be different. I agree with Rob. There's going to be changes in how we interact for a period of time. Who knows how long that'll be? Hopefully, we have some type of a treatment at some point that comes forward, or a vaccine. But that's where we're at. I mean, our builders will build and there'll be product, but it's more of getting that buyer confidence up. And if we don't change our economy, our local economy, and grow that average median household income, not average median household income, that's not, the buyers are going to be forced into multifamily units, which is, it's acceptable. A lot of people, that's a great option, but overall, if we don't have higher home ownership rates in our community, that's not a good thing.
Absolutely. We can agree more. And Mark, I want to ask you about efforts that you guys are taking to help the businesses in town. I looked at some of your posts and have recently talked a little bit about creating, for example, a personal protection marketplace to help people get the materials they need. But for as far as Spokane guidelines, I don't know how you feel, but I've been trying to find a good location for someone who's just really explaining what businesses need to do to get open under phase 2. Is that something you guys are working on?
Well, I would say not directly. And the reason is, Darren, because there are some great folks working on that. And so we're trying to really not duplicate things. So we're in fact, I've got a call. My next call this afternoon is with our partners at GSI and Visit Spokane and Spokane Valley Chamber. And so we're really working hard to make sure that we're coordinating and we're not duplicating efforts. I'd say that, doggone it, I don't have the website in front of me. AWB actually is probably the best current site that just recently launched, I think, this week. It's maybe one of you recalls the website, but it's a special dedicated website. I'm sure it's probably linked off of their homepage, Association of Washington Business. But they've got, and to your point, Darren, I think that the reason why it's so confusing in part is because each industry, as we just talked about, the differences, the nuances between home building and real estate, each industry is going to have, number one, they're responsible to work with the governor's office to come up with those criteria. Number two is when those they're going to be nuanced, because each business, it makes sense that interaction with the customer and how they handle everything from food to to supplies or whatever it is that they're selling, clothing, for instance. So we're going to be confused. I think the best way I would say is I think, and AWB is doing a tremendous job of, you'll be able to go, you can go in and you can enter in what kind of business I operate, how big it is, where I'm located, And then they will walk you through a series. You can pull out not only the criteria that you have to abide by, the best that they know it at the current moment, but then they have wonderful clearinghouse of resources, everything from information about where you can get PPE equipment, all the way to they have template posters and floor markers and signage that you can literally enter your own information into, send it to your local printer and have them print out for you and have it customized to your type of business. And so the reason for that is because it is so nuanced and therefore so complicated, but that's the best site that I've found.
And speaking of posters and guidelines for realtors, we know that this Monday at around 10 a.m., you should be seeing email indications from Washington Realtors. They're putting together this information right now. Rob had a chance to look at some of the slides. They looked like they had some pretty good solid details about how to reopen, some suggestions of what to do next, making sure that there's still no such thing as open houses, making sure that we know all inside the office, rearranging furniture, having spaces for when people come in, meetings less than 5, those kinds of things. And all of that should be coming out for realtors on Monday. That'll be really important for us to get ahead of and to make sure that we're complying with all the details. Rob, was there anything else from that list that you'd like to bring forward now that we could anticipate for realtors?
I think one of them is, I know at the state level, you don't enter the state Washington Realtors office at the state level unless you have a mask on. And they're recommending that we do that with our association office. And to piggyback on what Mark said, AWB, I'm sure our Washington Realtors works very closely with AWB. And I'm also sure that if you go on that AWB website and look for real estate, that AWB and Washington Realtors work together in putting that information out there. So like what you said, coming out Monday is a whole bunch of good information that's going to help all our brokerages as they open up, or they call it reopen for business.
Well, that sounds great. So as we wrap things up, what would you say your mood for real estate is, Rob? We'll give you a chance to say, do you feel optimistic, slow, fast? Where do you see things heading out of the gate here?
Oh, I'm pleasantly optimistic, and I don't know if it was Joel or Mark who stated, and I've stated this for 20 years, Spokane is in a prime position. I call it we're the crown of the inland Northwest, the Intermountain West, and people are going to be leaving the West Coast, the coast on both sides, and looking for good places to live. And we're going to be, I think we've already seen information on that from our different websites out there nationally, all kinds of clicks to Spokane. And so I'm really optimistic in the next few years that Spokane is going to see a lot of growth. I think the issue, and Joel mentioned this, is our median income in Spokane, because prices are starting because of lack of inventory and the very good interest rate. Prices are starting to get beyond some people's means, and we need to find a balance there. But other than that, I'm very optimistic for our future.
6 years in a row of increased double-digit prices. That certainly, you just don't know how long that can sustain, Joel. But I want to throw it to you now. Tell me where you're from your seat, what you're seeing, and how you anticipate things are going to be moving forward here in Spokane.
I right on there with Rob and the team, and I think I appreciate all the things that Mark and Downtown Spokane Partnership are doing. We have a thriving community, and everything that we talked about is true. Is you're going to see people moving to Spokane. We just got some hitches, and we need to find more jobs, higher paying jobs. I mean, it's great that we have the new Amazon facility. That's great, but that's not providing. It's providing the wages we currently have. They're not providing higher end jobs. And how do we get those manufacturing jobs that, the bigger, and I know that the airport, they've done some amazing things out there. We're ready for Boeing if they ever build if they need some extra space. We've got all the services provided. I mean, talk to Larry Crowder, the whole team out there. They're ready. They've got everything in place. They've got the SEC has been training everybody. So we just need, and it's not just one big fish. We just need to grow our own and find those people that can build their businesses here and create that environment where it's very fruitful, where they can come to Spokane. And I know when Mark was commissioner, he worked on that. Rob's the county or city council president. We've got a lot of great elected officials working on it. It's just trying to identify those people. We've got the medical center downtown. I mean, all the pieces are in place. Just something's got to pop. We've got to find some larger employers that can come in and service, because most of our large employers are actually government, whether it's WSU or it's the county, city, the school districts. I mean, that's our large employers right now, if you look at the list in Journal Business. So we need to find some of those private employers.
Darren, let me just mention, I want to piggyback on what Joel said. I can remember when we moved water to the West Plains and sewer and all that. That was in the 1980s. And we were thinking, oh, things are really going to start popping out there. Well, here we are, 2020, and now things are really popping out there. It takes a while in Spokane, but believe me, I think that'll be shortened right now because of what's going on as far as the Seattle's, Portland's, San Francisco's have just become so congested and so high priced. People are looking for other options. Anyway, I piggyback what Joel was saying, even though he left the scene, and what Mark was saying. I think things are going to start coming back pretty strong.
Mark, from your perspective, especially with the downtown businesses and trying to, we've been suffering for a couple of years of, increasing vacancy rates for businesses, and kind of feels like at times people were, sort of on the edge about, are they moving out? Are they staying in? What do you think? What do we need to do to restore confidence in the downtown area and keep it going?
A lot to pack in a couple of minutes. I want to run through a couple of quick things. One is to Rob's point and their vision at that time. One of the things we're hearing County Commissioner Al French talk about is the prospect of running a stormwater infrastructure system to the West Plains. So to further provide that shovel-ready opportunity on the West Plains and taking away the need to have to, set aside 30% of your land for stormwater capture is I think, a really tremendous idea. For us, I think we've actually seen a positive movement in the last couple of years in terms of commercial office vacancy, but absolutely the condition, primarily with regards to vagrancy and criminality, is really the only question mark about downtown Spokane. I think if it weren't for that, the optimism would be phenomenal. If you think about it, we've got the park is just getting done. We've got the Sportsplex under construction, which is going to give a beautiful shot in the arm to our retail and hospitality markets and trade. But at the same time, as I saw you communicating with my board chair, Dave Black from NAI Black, we've got the council monkeying around with the notion of requiring all homeless dollars going to support only wet or low or no barrier housing. And downtown has certainly been the recipient of the vast majority of that. And so, that I would say maybe that's the other question mark, is the politics, is can we get away from a little bit of the schizophrenia in terms of, on the one hand, we promote the expansion of patios, and on the other hand, we're essentially enabling, folks with addiction by these policies. And so I'd see that's the second concern for me. I'll just finish with this, which is saying, again, one of the things that we've been seeing over the last 2, 3, 4 years is and I think we're going to see it in spades, is as the commercial industry is tightening, we've seen a lot of conversion of buildings into housing. And I think we're going to continue to see that in spades when we think about the businesses that are reevaluating the ability for you and I to work from home, so to speak. They're evaluating their outlay in terms of leasable space. And so I think that probably will have at least a short-term impact on occupancy downtown. But amidst all of that, we're seeing, some conversion, and one of our bellwethers is what's called the Falls Project, Larry Stone's project on the north bank of the river. Here's a gentleman that, albeit well-heeled, this is his first really residential real estate development, and his confidence is high and he's moving forward. So I would just say we need to continue to work with both the industries, and we need to make some additional changes to that condominium reform legislation, make the ability for home ownership in downtown easier to attain. And we're going to see, I think, residential living in downtown continue to grow.
I do too, especially as we, it's really funny to see the footprint of town Spokane has typically been always south of the river, but now it really is moving north with all of the development with Kendall Yards, with Larry Stone's new project, the Wonder Bread place. That's a wonderful facility. A lot of the expansion is going that direction, and it's nice to see the downtown footprint really take a different definition. Tom, I'll leave this with you. Your thoughts about what you're hearing from realtors and where you think the direction's going, and we'll let you wrap things up.
Thank you. Thanks, Darren. I've been taking notes as these gentlemen have been talking, and I kind of, as a summary, for me, realtors need to encourage their clients, need to get themselves involved in returning to downtown and spending some money downtown. The lack of convention business, hotel, motel business, arena events, and tourism has created a great big hole in the downtown economy, and I think we as realtors need to do what we can to support that and to help bring it back as soon as possible. Again, I think Spokane is positioned extremely well. Our lack of density as compared to most of the West Coast cities is going to be desirable. I think if there's a silver lining in this pandemic, it's that many people have realized that they can telecommute a lot more effectively than they thought they could, that they don't have to live in downtown Seattle to stay in business and to work. They can actually go someplace as comfortable as Spokane and enjoy a better lifestyle and a less expensive cost of living and still do the business that they're used to doing. I think some of the fears and concerns that I hear from some of our friends and our relatives and business associates, I think our restart of the economy needs to still continue to be cautious, methodical, and responsible. And it's not like, this isn't the Wild West where we went from shutdown to complete chaos. Let's be responsible as we move forward. I think, as Rob said, Monday's going to bring some interesting policies, procedures, and ideas that'll help the real estate community and our fellow businesses to open up more safely. Affordability and housing shortage and all those things are going to continue to be an issue to us until we and our legislators address that. Mark mentioned the condo liability reform. There's a couple of serious legs, rungs in the ladder missing as long as we can't build condos effectively and economically. So I'm a little bit disheartened that construction is slow to come back. I understand why it would be, but we need to do everything we can in order to encourage that as well. So I don't know if that answered your question, Darren.
It did.
Those were some of the notes and some of the thoughts I had as we were going through this, and I really appreciate your input, gentlemen.
I think that the comment that Mark left would be a great way for us to end this. Be intentional about supporting local business, but remain optimistic. Cautious and optimistic, great words to use. And I thank you gentlemen for taking your time here to be with us today, and looking forward to seeing what work we can do together.
Thank you. Great to see all of you.
Good to see you.
Thank you all.
Take care, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.